It was reported today by TMZ Sports that there might be more to Hulk Hogan's death than we initially believed. We also got news that Swerve Strickland has a torn meniscus and will probably miss time after Forbidden Door. On that same note, we have more news on Will Ospreay and his neck injury and how he may also be missing time after Forbidden Door. And then finally, we have news on Chris Jericho's expiring AEW deal. We're going to get into where he may go, who wants him where, and we're going to get into kind of what the future might look like for Chris Jericho. So thank you so much for joining me here. I do appreciate your time. Let's hop into this. TMZ Sports reported today, August 21st, that there could be more to Hulk Hogan's death than we initially believed. So we're going to hop into this article here. Hulk Hogan's widow, Sky, confirmed to TMZ Sports that the wrestling legend's phrenic nerve was, quote, compromised during one of his surgeries. She added that an autopsy on Hogan has been done, but she declined to reveal its results. Sky also said that Hogan's body has not yet been cremated. Hulk Hogan may have been the victim of medical malpractice. Malpractice that may have cost him his life. This according to sources connected to the death case. Law enforcement sources tell TMZ Sports the Clearwater Police Department report regarding the 911 response to Hulk's home that day he died says an occupational therapist was present at the wrestling legend's Florida residence when he stopped breathing. According to the report, which is on lockdown, the therapist told the responding officers Hulk was the victim of medical malpractice. The therapist says that during a recent operation, it's unclear if it was a surgery to repair his heart or a neck procedure, but the surgeon said that they, quote, severed his phrenic nerve. The phrenic nerve stimulates the diaphragm, which controls breathing. This comes from TMZ. Our sources say that Hulk did not have a chest-clenching episode before his passing. Rather, he merely stopped breathing. We were told that it was his wife, Sky, who sounded the alarm when his breath halted, and that's when the 911 call was made. We were also told that there were conversations among the officers at the scene where they talked about what the therapist had told them, and this is on body cam. It's a fair assumption that the conversation between the occupational therapist and the officers is also on body cam. Hulk's daughter Brooke has called for an autopsy as of a week ago. We were told Hulk's body has not yet been cremated, but we have not gotten clarity if cremation has taken place. That comes from TMZ Sports. Obviously, pretty big news about Hulk Hogan. When he did pass, it happened, a few weeks ago, almost a month ago at this point. I think it was July 24th. When he did pass away, there wasn't a lot of news on the details. There wasn't a lot of specifics on what may or may not have happened. We were just told he stopped breathing and he's gone. So this is very interesting to me because the fact that there was potentially medical malpractice lines up with the fact that the guy's only 71 years old. I mean, like, I know to some people that might seem old, but like to just have an episode where you stop breathing, like a heart attack almost, it doesn't feel like a guy like Hulk in the shape that he's in physically would have that kind of episode. So look, I don't know about the validity of this. It seems pretty valid to me. It seems pretty interesting to me. The fact that his widow came forward and said that his phrenic nerve was maybe compromised during one of his recent surgeries. So what's going to happen next? Nothing. I don't really know if anything is going to happen next coming out of this. I think this is just some really important and informative details around his death and around kind of some of the stuff that went into his death. And, I thought it was an interesting topic to bring forward to a video. Now, the question that I had on my mind and the question that I'm sure other people have on their mind is there going to be legal action taken towards this surgeon who performed the procedure and maybe cost him his life or got the ball rolling in that direction? I don't know. I'm not here to debate, what's going to happen next or is legal action going to be taken. I truly do not know. But I do think this is very interesting news that it could have just been an accident and it could have been something that was not intended, and It could have been more than just a random occurrence that happened late in his life. Definitely some interesting news, but I'm not wishing anything to be done. I'm not, speculating that this, that, or X and Y is going to happen. I'm just bringing it here to this platform because I want to get it out there. I don't know what's going to happen next. Anything could happen next, or nothing could happen next. Like I said, definitely seems like there was more to that situation than initially met the eye. Probably could have been just an accident. All right, we got some news about the AEW roster, specifically two of the top guys on AEW's roster. We got Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay. Two pretty big reports on them. So this comes from Fightful Select. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select. We'll dive into Swerve first, then we'll touch on Ospreay. So they say Swerve Strickland's on-screen knee injury is legitimate. He has a torn meniscus, but it is not a new injury, and he has actually been wrestling with that torn meniscus since 2019. The Jacksonville Jaguars medical team is helping him with his recovery. There's a possibility that he has surgery/time off after his match with Okada at Forbidden Door. Got that from AO on Twitter. If you don't know him, follow him. He's fantastic. He's hilarious. So I got that from his account. That was the first place I found it. So I covered that. Now let's go to Ospreay. So this comes from PW Insider. It says, Will Ospreay actually needs neck surgery in the near future. He will likely take time off after Forbidden Door. Now, I heard some rumblings recently that Swerve had an injury, didn't know if it was legit, and that Ospreay has some neck deal going on. Now, I'm also not here to debate whether or not he should be cleared to wrestle at Forbidden Door. It's probably one of those situations that can't get worse. You think of Cody Rhodes wrestling with a torn pec. That's something that probably hurt, but it couldn't get any worse than it already was. And that was part of the reason why the doctors cleared him. I'd have to imagine that this is a similar situation because obviously he's going to be wrestling a lights out match in a few days at Forbidden Door. I have to imagine that it is purely a case of his injury not being able to get worse. It's about as bad as it can get, and he cannot do any more harm to it. So if that's the case, I'm not going to play armchair doctor and tell him, no, you can't be wrestling. This is careless, and this is, out of bounds for AEW. That's up to the doctors to decide, and clearly he's getting the okay to wrestle at Forbidden Door, and it looks like they're using it to their advantage in story and kayfabe, because in his promo on Wednesday, he did say, I am injured, I'm not cleared, but I'm still going to fight Jon Moxley. So to me, it's probably a situation that the doctors have cleared him in. He's probably comfortable going forward. And I think anyone speculating about whether or not this is actually valid or actually fine to go ahead with, I think you just need to pump the brakes a little bit. And remember, you're not a doctor. You're not a doctor. Will Ospreay is the performer. He gets to make decisions about his own body, and the doctors are the doctors for a reason. They get to make decisions about AEW's roster. So just take a step back and kind of realize that. Now, these are two of AEW's top acts who both have pretty bad injuries, post All In. And going forward, this is going to be a pretty big hit to AEW's television and to their main event orbit, to their main event landscape. Swerve and Will in particular, especially for me before All In, it looked like they were being lined up for some sort of program or to kind of stay in the vicinity of Hangman Adam Page on the television, on the shows. And it looks like that's going to need to be altered or changed a little bit. These guys are going to be out for several months probably, especially if they both need surgery on pretty important body parts. It's not like they just need wrist surgery or something. So it's a pretty precarious spot for AEW's main event landscape to be in. These are two of the most over baby faces they have, and I'm wishing them a very, very speedy recovery. In their absence, you're going to need guys like Ricochet, like Mark Briscoe. You're going to need them to step up, and you're going to need them to kind of take the mantle of that main event landscape and run with it. And I think they'll be able to do that. So I have faith in AEW's roster. It's incredibly deep, that they'll be able to kind of step up to the plate in these guys' absence. But this is a massive, massive loss. These two guys, just two of AEW's absolute best, potentially on the shelf for months with surgery or recovery. All right, the last thing comes to us from WrestleVotes. It says there are several within WWE, including active talent, who want Chris Jericho to return to WWE. They ultimately expect a deal to be completed once Jericho is legally able to do so. Again, that comes from WrestleVotes. Now, here's the thing with Chris. He is used up. He doesn't add much to anything he is involved in at this point in his career. I mean, the learning tree stuff was a mistake and a half. That didn't benefit really anyone. I mean, it kind of occupied Chris, and it occupied Big Bill and Brian Keith for a little bit. Bandito ended up going over in the end. But what did it really accomplish? It just kind of brought the television down a peg in that time that he was actively on TV. Look, Chris Jericho is 54. Okay, he is not a young man. In my opinion, it is time for him to retire. I have no appetite to see him wrestle in any company whatsoever. AEW, Japan, WWE, I don't care. I don't want to see him wrestle anywhere. Now, if he wants to go off and be a producer, he can do that. I think he has a very sharp mind when it comes to wrestling, so he can go off and do that. Or if he wants to work backstage in another capacity or anything, whatever, fine. I don't need to see him as an on-screen figure in any company. So let's say he does go to WWE in the event that he ends up signing a contract with them, because that's looking kind of likely. It's looking like it could happen. What does that end up looking like? And how do they end up using him? I think they're going to bring him in, and he's going to be kind of the cool, beloved veteran that the crowd is going to cheer. He's going to be incredibly over. He's going to get big pops, and they're not going to have him weigh down the television. They're going to have him be kind of a spark. They're going to try and attempt to have him be a spark, although that may be a challenge. Again, I have no appetite for it. They're going to have their work cut out for them when it comes to being able to integrate him successfully into their television in the latter half of his career. So if it happens, it happens, but I'm not going to be too jazzed about it. We'll just say that. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate your time. I did not plan on making this video. My next video is supposed to come out Saturday. But obviously I had just a ton of news came out today, and I wanted to get my thoughts out on it, and I wanted to kind of summarize it here for you. So thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.